r/ask Reddit. What's something you can't believe you had to explain to another adult? That Halloween has never and will never fall on Friday the 13th. It was my mom. Experience this. It was my aunt. She had some meme that said Halloween that year was the first one to fall on Friday 13th in 666 years or some ridiculous crap like that. Press up when you want to go up in the elevator and down if you want to go down. She thought you had to guess where the elevator was, and if it was under you, let's say, you had to press up. Is she still stuck in an elevator somewhere? Some say she's still pressing buttons to this day. My wife and I had to explain to the neighbor that our dog is part of our family, and no, they can't just have him. Their kids wanted our dog, which was cute, until the mother also decided that she wanted our dog and it was only fair that they got to have him on the weekends because we get to have him all week long. This happened to a friend of mine. It got to the point of this family taking the dog out of their yard while they were at work and then be seen taking it on walks a few days later in the same neighborhood. They ended up having to move the dog to her mum's place several suburbs over. At that point, can't they get into legal trouble? In most places, a pet is considered property from a legal standpoint, so that would be theft. Also probably trespassing and possibly burglary. That no matter how much you might want to put a camo pattern on your walls, you, not the paint, have to determine what that pattern looks like, and you will also have to purchase multiple cans of paint tinted differently because camo doesn't come out of a can that way. This is one of the rare times wallpaper is a reasonable choice. Insofar as camo walls are a reasonable choice. Should have convinced him that a single can of olive drab would do the trick, and then when he complains, gaslight him by saying that it's working because he can't see it. In regards to the North and South Poles, neither is the one that is always hot. I guess they were thinking about the equator. I had to explain to my friend that the Earth wasn't 1019 years old. Happy birthday to the ground. I threw the rest of the cake too. Yes sir. When you sign up for insurance, you're agreeing to pay for it. I had to explain to my mother that mussels are meat. A piece of meat was tough, and so I must have said something about what part of the cow the mussel came from. No, we weren't eating mussels. We were eating meat. She was sickened by the concept that anyone would eat mussels. Somehow this got to the point of her claiming that humans didn't have any meat on them because they aren't food. I did not win that argument. Humans have no meat. Meat is not muscles. Period. Oh, it turns out people are not part of the animal kingdom either. It was a dismal childhood. And there comes that stop disrespecting me part when someone younger starts winning an argument. Wait till years down the line when they want you to feel bad for their ignorance. 6 inches isn't 0.6 of a foot. She had been slowly, unknowingly, overcharging our company for materials for years. Unknowingly. Incompetently, the worst kind when you realize it. Had to explain to someone that islands don't tip over if you put too much weight on the edge. Hey, if you can get enough penguins to dance or jackhammer on the edge, anything is possible. As a server, there are so many times I have to explain to guests that chicken can't be cooked medium rare. I won't get salmonella. This is chicken, not salmon. That Earth has one moon. The new moon on the calendar every month confused her. It seems that a lot of people have confusion when it comes to the moon. Copying and pasting my story here. I used to be a primary school teacher. We were planning our unit on space. So talking about planets, moons and stars etc. 2 colleagues of mine, other teachers in their mid-30s, I was early 20s at that point, got really confused when I explained to them the moon wasn't a star, that it was a moon. They paused, looked at each other for a second and just said, "No Sesmet, that's just its name. It's actually a star." I tried explaining the difference, but they were on the senior management team, and because I was younger and more junior, assumed they knew better. Canada is part of North America. Pretty much anything geography related. Most people are simply terrible at knowing where things are even within their own local regions. Island isn't in the continent of Mexico. My friend worked at Office Depot and had to explain to a customer why he couldn't make him photocopies of a $20 bill. Oh, of course you can just photocopy $20 bills. I just slave here answering stupid questions for you because I enjoy the human interaction. Hahaha. When I worked at Office Depot, the FBI pulled my drawer after a couple came in. They apparently got the really nice resume paper and were printing 20s. Apparently, Office Depot is where you go for your counterfeiting needs. I had to explain to a teacher, in front of her class, that a penguin was a bird. I didn't want to be like that, but she was adamant that if it didn't fly, it wasn't a bird. Obviously she's right. Emus aren't birds either. They're bloodthirsty killing machines. We wouldn't have needed to fight a war against them if they were just birds. I had a teacher saying that dinosaur was the biggest mammal to ever exist. Dinosaur isn't a single species. Dinosaurs aren't mammals. Blue whales are bigger. My dad had like 6 or 7 paid recurring charges for internet porn and a lot of malware on his computer. I had to explain free porn to my 67-year-old dad. So, that was something. I worked as the internet repair guy you get on the phone when you're having trouble briefly. Had a guy insist his internet was broken. All the diagnostics looked fine. Asked the basic router troubleshooting questions. Everything is fine. Finally ask him to just open up Internet Explorer and tell me what happens. He described a common homepage. I explained to him that his internet is working. He says it's not working like it used to, so I assume it's a speed issue and I walk him through a speed test. He's getting what he pays for. Guy still insists internet isn't working. I just ask him what he wants it to do and he blurts out, "I just want to look at porn." Turns out his homepage had been set to a porn site for a while and his son had restored the browser to default settings and he couldn't remember the porn site he used to go to. I just had him Google free porn and gave him instructions how to set something as his homepage and how to navigate through a porn site. Best customer I ever had at any job. My grandma once got worried that I deleted all her emails because I updated her browser and it reset her homepage from Yahoo Mail back to Bing. Some people just don't seem to understand how computers work. Why a room below sea level on a cruise ship would not have a balcony? A balcony bubble would be pretty cool, terrifying. There's a girl I used to work with who didn't know submarines actually existed. PSSSHHHTTT. Next you'll be telling me there are rocket ships that can take man to the moon. Get outta here. That I couldn't just go to the bathroom and pee my period out to be done with it. He was about 19/20 at the time and obviously didn't have sex education. Been married 25 years. He will never live that down. To make pasta you have to boil the water. Mac and cheese. That shouldn't be too hard. Boil water. What am I, a chemist? I was explaining to my ex-girlfriend's brother that I will be traveling to Hawaii. He asked, "Can you drive or do you have to take a plane to get there?" He's 35. That's something I would ask simply because my mouth sometimes moves way faster than my brain. In school Intro to Culinary Arts, I remember that the teacher asked what you wouldn't put in a convection oven. My brain was thinking, okay, some sort of liquid. My mouth went ahead and said Jello. I know you don't cook Jello, but still, it would be a bad idea to put it in a convection oven. You can still get diarrhea even if you believe in Jesus. Well, there's my new t-shirt. You shouldn't iron your clothes while you're wearing them. One guess as to how this came up. Was tipped a $20 bill to be spilt between myself and a coworker. I handed her $10 I had in my pocket and took the $20. She said it wasn't fair that I had $20 and she only had $10. I tried to explain to her that I already had the $10, so another $10 equaled $20. She couldn't wrap her head around it, insisting I was trying to rip her off. She gave me back the $10, took the 20 to a register and made change of 2 $10 bills. As she hands me mine I showed her that now I still have $20 and she has $10. But somehow she was satisfied she'd thwarted my attempts to shortchange her. Needless to say I didn't stay friends with her after that. This is made all the more ridiculous by the fact that she had once told me she was forced to repeat grade 12 math class because she got 100%, and the teacher accused her of cheating. The following year she got 98%. I'm thinking something fishy is going on there. Ugh. I had a roommate like this. We both had utilities in our names, and she refused to just let me do the math for who owed what difference. I had to write her a check for the full half of the ones in her name and she'd write me one for her half of mine. My mother told me nobody can live on $40,000 USD a year, and I was unable to get her to understand that it is pretty normal to make $40,000 or less and people do fine with that salary. It's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? When I was a little kid in the 80s, I distinctly remember my mother insisting that even if you had $1 million, there's no way you could spend it in your lifetime. Granted, we lived in a very low cost of living area, but even I knew at 5 years old that some people had mansions that were worth over $1 million. My theory is that she was told that in the 50s as a child, still wasn't true then, and never updated it, knowing the depressed local economy I grew up in, and living below the poverty line. I think it was one of those myths people told themselves to feel better about their situation. When a smart bomb strikes a building and blows it up, it doesn't just kill the bad guys, it kills everyone in the building. Smart only means it's going to hit the building instead of a random location. Smart bomb goes off, kills all the terrorists and the guy who lit it 20 minutes ago. She's an educator. It was one of those days where Mars was super bright. She was super sure the moon was Mars, and suddenly it was super visible and close to Earth. Like, it came super close and ducked back off overnight. Mars. I work with this guy who thinks that average precipitation is, like, some sort of quota that nature is obliged to meet. For example, if it's a particularly dry summer, he thinks it will just rain a lot in the last few days before summer ends. Look at that genius mother ducker, he just solved climate change. Don't worry farmers, I know it hasn't rained in 5 years and all your crops are dead. Nature's like, required to give you more rain to make up for it. Don't bring your dog to work and let her pee poop on the carpet. Tiny poop and little puddles are not okay just because they are tiny. She weighs 4 pounds. He said she's so little it doesn't matter. He said he never even notices at home, and if I had a dog, I'd feel differently. Have a dog. Still don't want urine and feces in my carpet, at home or at work. I worked in a dog-friendly office that didn't any formal policy, so we ended up with dogs that weren't socialized properly, not trained, loud, and owners who let the dogs poop and pee all over the place, and let them sit in on client conference calls. A manager had to remind people that clients came to the office and it was therefore not cool to have poop laying around. Management never did anything and never cleaned the carpets more than once a quarter. This was a major global company, but this local office was a shithole, literally. Had to explain to my wife that pickles were made of cucumbers. She didn't believe me. Still not sure she does. Ask her if she can buy you some pickle seeds. You want to grow some next spring. I once had to explain to a college friend that Indians didn't have spices running in their blood that allows them to eat spicier food. On the contrary, I had a college friend who is Indian and he tried to convince one of our other friends that he did have spices in his blood. If you don't go to work you won't get paid, especially when you're constantly complaining about always being broke. You can't call out whenever you don't want to go in, and then wonder why you have no money. How to use a new type of electric hand drying machine, mounted on the wall, in a public men's room. The guy tried everything to make it work, other than following the simple instructions on the hand dryer. It even had arrows pointing the way where his hands should be inserted to activate it. I was in a truck stop restroom at the end of the working day and was really tired, so more and more places now have the auto sinks where you put your hands under it and the water starts. I'm waving my hands under the faucet and loudly complaining about how those things never work. The guy washing up beside me reached over and turned the water on for me. Well, you will be packing that one to the grave. No, you should not perform an auto vasectomy at home. You should see a doctor for that. To be fair, there is only one person that can perform an auto vasectomy. Oh man, just imagine getting admitted to the hospital, undressed, all shaven down there, put in a gown, wheeled to the operating room, anesthetized, and then the surgeon gives the vasectomy to himself instead of you. Had to explain to a 40-year-old woman that the clitoris and pee hole are different. That drinks have caloric content. A coworker was complaining how she was having trouble losing weight and didn't realize drinking 4 hot chocolates a day was not really conducive to weight loss. That you cannot convert between square meters and cubic feet without additional data. Square meters. Cubic feet. Had to explain to someone in college that 3 seconds of dish soap was not necessary for each plate you wash, as in he would turn the dish soap upside down and squeeze for 1, 2, 3, 4 each plate. That oil isn't easier to get in the Middle East because you only have to drill through sand. That Spain is a real place, that not everyone who speaks Spanish is a Mexican, and that Mexicans are called that because they're from Mexico. That titties and boobies are not the anatomical words for breasts. I was flying back home from overseas with a friend, and I said something about how it was a bummer we couldn't bring fresh produce back. She asked why we couldn't, and I explained you weren't allowed to bring plants when flying crossing borders. She thought it was absurd that I would consider a piece of produce, for example, an avocado or mango, to be a plant. It became a pretty heated argument. A dear friend of mine phoned his mother, on his first week away at college, to ask her how you cooked eggs. He was having trouble working the shells in. He wasn't kidding. I can only imagine the feeling of failure as a parent when your adult child comes to you with this question. Told my roommate that if he cooked food on less than the highest level of heat, he wouldn't burn as much food, and would generally have more success. A week later, I explained to him that when he was just boiling water, high heat was okay. Had a co-worker who said she didn't eat eggs because they're forced abortion babies. Chick refused to accept that unfertilized eggs don't hatch and she didn't have to worry because she's just eating the chicken's periods. After this conversation carried on far too long, she proceeded to eat a bowl of pasta that I'm 97% sure was made with eggs. That's having sex on your period doesn't automatically create AIDS. One of the two people need to already have AIDS. That you can't get AIDS through sexual intercourse if you don't already have the HIV virus inside your body or your partner is carrying it. A guy I talked to once thought that gay men got AIDS simply by having gay sex, and that the disease just spontaneously appeared through the act of interanal insemination. I don't even think that he understood the concept of a virus. That all babies, including the first one after marriage, take 9-10 months to develop. Just because the first one comes along in under 9 months, doesn't mean that it takes less gestational time. I was in my mid-20s, and she was several years older. I had to explain to my friend that we didn't actually gain an hour of sunlight when we changed the clocks in the spring. Turn off the high beams for cars traveling in the opposite direction. There are more than 6 bones in the human body. She thought it was head, back, arms and legs. When you travel at 60 miles per hour you will cover 60 miles in an hour. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.